dare enter, a place forgotten by time, where shadows breathe, and the dead still remember. Sit, watch, and do not look away.
They told me the place was gone, condemned, demolished in '97 after the incident. But when I pulled off the snow-laced highway and followed the narrow forest road, the gate was still there, half rusted, bent, and chained. And behind it, rising above the pine trees like a broken crown, stood Blackridge Asylum. Not gone. Not even asleep. Just waiting. I killed the engine and stepped out into the cold. The air felt thinner here, not from altitude, but from absence. Like this part of the mountains had been hollowed out and left to rot from the inside. I hadn't come for a thrill. I wasn't one of those YouTube explorers looking for cheap scares. I came because my brother, Danny, was last seen here 2 months ago. He never came home. The police said he must have fallen, got lost in the forest. But I knew Danny, ex-army, wilderness trained, never careless. His last text to me said, "Don't follow the hallway, it loops." Then nothing. Not a call. Not a ping. Just silence. I needed answers, even if it meant walking into the place that swallowed him. The lock on the gate was broken, or maybe never locked to begin with. I pushed through, boots crunching old gravel, snow hissing beneath the surface. The asylum loomed ahead, 4 stories of concrete rot, its windows like blind eyes. Most were boarded. Others gaped open, black and waiting. The front door was chained shut. I circled left, past a row of broken benches, and found an old service entrance. Metal. Dent-marked. Slightly ajar. The air that spilled out was warm. And wet. Like breath. I hesitated. Then stepped inside. The door creaked shut behind me without touch. Inside, the silence was unnatural. I heard no echo, no wind, just the click of my boots on cracked linoleum and a faint sound of something dripping, somewhere deep ahead. I raised my flashlight. The hallway stretched forward, then curved, then again. Exactly like the warning Danny left. Don't follow the hallway. But I already had. And a door behind me was gone. Just wall. I turned around fast. Nothing. No door. No frame. Just the same stained wall, seamless and solid. My breath fogged in the beam of the flashlight. I pressed my hand against the concrete, warm, almost pulsing. And beneath my fingers, something moved. Not visibly. Not in shape. But in feeling. Like the wall exhaled. I stepped back. The hallway was quiet again. And somehow longer. The far end had disappeared into black. My light barely touched it. I took another step forward, trying to mark the way. Left foot, crack in the tile. Right foot, torn wallpaper. Third step, rusted vent. I turned to double-check my exit. Gone again. Now the wallpaper was different. The vent had moved higher. The tile no longer cracked in the same spot. I wasn't just lost. The place was shifting. I heard it next. From above. Footsteps. Soft. Ron! Like bare feet slapping concrete. Then dragging, I froze. The sound passed above me, toward the center of the building, then stopped. Silence pressed in again. But something had changed. I could smell it. The air was thick with antiseptic now. Hospitals always smell like that, bleach and despair. But this was worse. Like someone had poured ammonia over something rotting. I swallowed hard. "Denny?" I whispered. No answer. Just a soft sound behind me. Tap, tap, tap. I turned the light. There, in the dust on the wall, were 3 wet fingerprints. Fresh, slowly sliding downward. I backed away, pulse hammering in my throat. My foot hit something metal. A wheelchair. Rust-patched, fabric torn, facing the wall. I moved around it, careful not to make a sound. Then I saw the note, folded, tucked between the seat cushions. I pulled it free with shaking hands. 4 words, scrawled in black ink. She walks without skin. I didn't understand. Not then. But I would, because at the far end of the hallway, just barely visible in the circle of light, something moved. Not walked. Crawled. Fast. Run. And then it stopped. It stopped just at the edge of the light. I couldn't see it clearly, just the suggestion of a shape, low to the ground, limbs too long, elbows jutting the wrong way. It didn't breathe, didn't twitch. It just waited. My flashlight flickered once. Then again. No, not now. I banged it with my palm, the beam steady, but I'd lost my rhythm. My heartbeat was too loud, my throat too dry. I took a single step backward. The shape twitched. Just a jerk, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. I froze. So did it. We were locked in something ancient, primal, the predator and the prey, but I didn't know which one I was anymore. I whispered, "Danny?" And then it spoke. Not in a voice. In my mind. Like a memory I didn't own. "You left the door open." I staggered back. "No," I whispered. I didn't. "You left the door open." Louder now. Echoing. Repeating in loops in different voices. "You left the door open. You left. You." The shape moved again. Stood. No. Rose. Unfolded. It scraped against the walls, tall now, its limbs unfolding like broken umbrellas. Skinless. Pink. Veins twitching like worms. A face, no faces, shifted across its surface. Eyes blinked open across its chest. A mouth grinned wide where its stomach should be. And in that grin, I saw Danny. His face, his eyes. Trapped, blinking, crying. "Denny!" I screamed. The thing stepped forward. 1 foot. Then another. Each step hissed like meat on a stovetop. I ran. didn't care which way. Didn't care if I ran in circles. The hallway twisted behind me, doors slamming open and shut on their own. Whispers chased me through the dark. Left us. Left us. Left us. I stumbled down a stairwell I didn't remember. Landed hard. Darkness swallowed me. Then a light blinked on overhead, flickering, buzzing, and I saw it. I wasn't alone. Rows of beds, strapped down, filled, and every one of them had my face. I stood frozen. The room was too big, too long. Bed after bed, all rusted frames and stained mattresses, and every one of them held a version of me. Some were asleep. Some were staring. Some were whispering to themselves, mouthing words I didn't know, but somehow understood. You left us. You left. You. One turned its head toward me, slowly, bones cracking. Its mouth moved, but the voice came from behind me. You always wake up right before it gets real. I turned fast, but there was no one there. Only a mirror. Tall. Framed in rusted iron. The reflection wasn't me. It was one of the others. Grinning. Wider than human. Its arms were longer than mine. Its teeth were too many. Its eyes, all wrong. It stepped forward. But my reflection stayed still. I stumbled back, bumped into one of the beds. The version of me strapped there opened its eyes. Mouth sewn shut. Tears streaming sideways. It shook its head violently, trying to warn me. Then I felt it. A hand on my shoulder. I turned. And there was nothing. Just the weight. Just the pressure. Like fingers pressing into my bones without skin. I ran. Shoved through the door on the far wall. Slammed it behind me. I was in a hallway again, but this one was lit. Photos lined the walls. My school. My bedroom. My mother's hospital bed. All the moments I never wanted to remember. Each picture darker than the last. Each face more blurred. At the end of the hallway was a door. Glass pane. A single light flickering behind it. I pushed through and found myself outside. Back in the woods. Breathing air again. Real air. Cold. Sharp. But wrong. The trees weren't trees. They were people. Frozen in place. Faces stretched into bark. Mouths still open in screams. Hands twisted into branches. And all of them were reaching. Toward me. Above me, the moon was gone. Only a single eye blinked down. Pupils shaped like a keyhole. And the voice returned. Not from the woods. Not from the sky. From inside me. You left the door open. You left us. You brought it back. Then, everything blinked black. And I opened my eyes. Back in the cabin. Sitting in the rocking chair. The lantern still lit. And at my feet, footprints. Fresh. Leading toward the door. And from outside, a knock. 3 slow taps. Knock, knock, knock. Then a whisper. Your turn. The air outside the cabin was too still. No birds, no insects, not even the sound of wind through the trees. It was as if the world had stopped to watch. Jacob and I stood in the clearing, staring up at the second-story window. The light in the bathroom glowed steady, soft, yellow, innocent. A lie. Because whatever had been inside that house, it wasn't done. It hadn't failed. It had marked us, and I felt it, a weight beneath my ribs, a flicker at the edge of thought. Like something had buried itself inside me while I wasn't looking. Like it was learning how to be me. Jacob turned to me, his voice hoarse. We can't leave it. What? That thing, that place. We can't just run. I'm not going back in there, I said. You don't have to, but we have to end it. I stared at him. You think it can end? He didn't answer. He just started walking. Back toward the tree line. Away from the cabin. Deeper into the woods. I followed. Because he was right. You can't outrun what remembers you. We walked in silence, boots crunching through snow that seemed to swallow sound. The deeper we went, the less the world around us felt like forest. The air smelled sterile, like bleach and rot, a memory of something medical, forgotten. Jacob stopped and pointed ahead. Through the fog, a shape loomed. A building, slouched, sunken, but intact. Steel bones, broken glass windows. The kind of place that pretends it's dead, but breathes when no one's watching. That's it, Jacob said quietly. The hospital. I stared up at the entrance. The faded letters above the door read, BLXKRIDGE Asylum. You said it was abandoned. I said it burned, but not everything dies like it should. The doors stood open. Not forced. Not broken. Just open. Waiting. We stepped inside. The air changed. Heavier, like stepping underwater. The lobby was still, but too still. No dust, no decay, just clean white tile and silence. The kind of silence that has teeth. A wheelchair sat in the middle of the room. Empty. Facing us. We didn't touch it. Didn't speak. We just walked past, toward the nurse's station, when we heard the sound. Squeak. Not a footstep. A wheel. Turning. Alone. We turned. The chair was gone. The hallway behind us was dark. Long. Run. And something at the end of it whispered, "Your file's still open." We didn't move. The voice hadn't come from the air. It came from inside the walls. Jacob raised the lantern again, but the light barely reached past the nurse's desk now. The hallway behind it seemed to stretch, elongate, bending geometry like the building was reconfiguring itself. "I don't think we're in the real hospital," I said. Jacob nodded. "It remembers us." "The hospital?" "No." His voice cracked. "Her." A long pause. Then, squeak. The wheelchair again. Only this time it wasn't behind us. It was beside us. Just there. Still empty. But now the seat was wet. Not rain. Not water. Blood. Still warm. Still dripping. "Do not sit," Jacob whispered. We stepped back as the chair turned on its own, slowly, like a head following a sound. It faced the dark hallway again. And rolled forward, vanishing into the dark. The hallway lights flickered, once, twice, then one by one, they began turning on. Not from power. From memory. Faint figures appeared in the flickering glass of the hallway windows. Nurses. Patients. Children. All watching us. All is still. And at the end of the hallway, the elevator dinged. Once. Then the doors slid open. Inside, a mirror. And in it, not us, but what we'd become if we never left. We didn't step inside. We couldn't. Because the figures in the elevator mirror weren't just watching. They were moving. Not real movement, mirrored movement. But not ours. One raised its hand and waved. Another grinned wide enough to tear the skin at the corners. Then one by one, they stepped closer to the mirror surface, until their faces pressed against the glass. Jacob whispered, "What happens if the doors close?" The elevator dinged again. The lights above the door blinked. And behind us, a new sound. Dragging. Wet. Rhythmic. Like bare feet across linoleum. We turned. The hallway was empty. But the sound got closer. The elevator began to close. Without thinking, I reached in, jammed my hand between the doors. They stopped. Shuddered. But didn't open. Instead, the mirrored versions inside pressed their palms against the glass. Each one mouthing something different. But the same word always returned. Stay. The dragging grew louder. The air got colder. Jacob grabbed my shoulder. Choose. What? Elevator or hallway? I looked both ways. Neither were exits. Neither were real. But one would remember us. The other would keep us. The elevator began to open again. And in the reflection, I saw something behind me. Not Jacob. Not a stranger. Me. But older. Tired. And smiling. I turned around, slowly. The older version of me didn't vanish. Didn't flicker. It just stood there. Same jacket. Same scar above the brow. But the eyes? Empty. No color. Just static. As if they were remembering me backwards. Jacob didn't see it. Or pretended not to. He was staring at the elevator, knuckles white against the frame. I don't care where it goes, he said. Just not here. The elevator lights dimmed. One figure inside began tapping the glass. Once per second. Tick. 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 Please, Jacob said. I pulled him back. The elevator doors closed. They didn't slam, they sealed. With a hiss. Then silence. No hum. No cables. Just gone. As if the elevator had never been there. Behind us, the dragging stopped. The thing wearing my face was closer now. Its smile twitched. Then it spoke, my voice, but not mine. I made it out. Liar. It took a step forward. I raised my hand, ready to fight, but it didn't attack. It knelt, laid something on the floor. A Polaroid. Face down. Then it whispered, "Your turn," and disappeared. Not into air. Into shadow. Like stepping backward into memory. Jacob picked up the photo. Didn't turn it over. Just held it. Hands trembling. This isn't ending, is it? I shook my head. No, not yet. A new hallway opened ahead of us. One that hadn't been there. But somehow, one we knew. The wallpaper was peeling. The door at the end was red. And carved into it, a single word. Home. Jacob stepped toward it. Paused. What if it's not ours? He asked. It isn't, I said, but it knows we'll open it. The lights behind us began to hum. Not flickering, buzzing. Like something was charging up. Or waiting for us to hesitate. I touched the door. It felt warm. Too warm. Like skin. It pulsed beneath my palm, once, and then swung inward. No hinges. No sound. Just invitation. Inside. Nothing. A room. Gray. Circular. Like a bunker made from old concrete and rot. At the center, a table. One chair. A tape recorder sat on top, already spinning. Jacob didn't move. So I stepped in first. Each footstep echoed, as if the room was larger than it appeared. I pressed stop on the recorder. Then rewind. Then play. A voice crackled out, low, broken mine. If you're hearing this, you've already stepped too far in. There's no door back, no path forward. You are the loop now. Jacob's breath caught. The recorder clicked, then rewound itself. Played again. Same words. But now, the voice wasn't mine. It was Jacob's. Then silence. A door opened behind the far wall. Another hallway. This one with stairs going down. Always down. And written in soot on the steps. You've been here before. Jacob stared at the writing on the stairs. His voice shook. I've never been here before, this isn't mine. But the soot shifted as he spoke. The words changed. Yes, you have. We didn't speak after that. We descended. The staircase curved in impossible angles, always left, always down. The walls throbbed with the sound of something breathing too slow to be human. After what felt like an hour, we reached a landing. A mirror hung crooked on the wall. It showed neither of us. Only the cabin, burning, over and over. A loop. The flames never reached the trees. They just burned in silence and then reversed. Jacob reached out to touch the mirror. Don't, I said. It's bait. But he already had. The mirror shattered silently. No shards fell. Instead, they melted, dissolved like ash in water. And behind it, a window. To what looked like our world. Bright sky. Cars. Noise. Escape. I pressed my hand to the glass. It was cold. Real. And then a reflection appeared. Not mine. Not Jacob's. Something behind us. Tall. Stretched. It grinned without lips. And whispered in two voices. This time, one of you stays. Jacob spun around. I didn't. Because I already knew. I was the one who wasn't leaving. Jacob grabbed my arm. Run, he said. We sprinted past the broken mirror, through the door it had revealed. The air changed instantly. No more damp rot. No more breathing walls. Just cold. We were in a hallway. Clean. White. Sterile. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Doors lined both sides. Identical. Numbered. 1, 2, 3. Each one had a slot beneath the number. Like hospital rooms. But instead of names or charts, each held a Polaroid. And every Polaroid showed the same thing. A person. Tied to a chair. Eyes open. Mouth missing. Jacob walked to door 6. Paused. His fingers shook as he lifted the photo. It's my dad. He looked older, bruised, gone in the eyes. Jacob reached for the handle. I stopped him. Whatever's in there, it's not him anymore. He pulled away. I have to know. The door creaked open. Darkness inside. And then, a voice. His father's voice. Soft, shaky. Jake? Jacob stepped inside. The door slammed shut. I was alone. Alarms began to scream. Every light went red. And behind every door, something pounded, screaming to get out. I turned back to 6, tried to open it. Locked. Inside, Jacob was shouting, begging. Then, silence, and a sound like tearing fabric. I stepped back. Every door opened at once. And from each one, someone stepped out. Someone who looked like me. They stepped out one by one. 40, maybe 50. Each version of me wore a different expression, a different injury, a different failure. Some sobbed, some smiled, some bled from the mouth, the eyes, the chest. None of them blinked. I backed away, hands shaking, throat closing. One stepped forward. He was older, hollow, lips stitched shut. He raised his hand and pointed behind me. I turned. Door 0 had opened. Inside, a chair, a mirror, a spotlight. Empty. Waiting. The clones didn't speak, but I heard them anyway. Take your seat. I stumbled backward. No. They all stepped forward. Take your seat. Faster now. Footsteps echoing in perfect sync. I turned and ran. The hallway didn't end. It bent, looped, writhed like it didn't want me to leave. But the lights ahead were changing. No longer white, now blue. A low hum filled the air. Mechanical. Artificial. And then I saw the sign overhead. Observation room. I burst through the door and stopped. The room was massive, cold, circular. Dozens of monitors lined the walls. Every screen showed the same thing. Me. Sleeping. Crying. Screaming. Being dissected. Being rewritten. The real horror? Some of them weren't in the cabin. They were in cities. Offices. Bedrooms. I looked up. A mirror. One-way glass. And behind it, a silhouette. Watching. Smiling. Taking notes. They stepped out one by one. 40, maybe 50. Each version of me wore a different expression, a different injury, a different failure. Some sobbed, some smiled, Some bled from the mouth, the eyes, the chest. None of them blinked. I backed away, hands shaking, throat closing. One stepped forward. He was older, hollow, lips stitched shut. He raised his hand and pointed behind me. I turned. Door 0 had opened. Inside, a chair, a mirror, a spotlight. Empty. Waiting. The clones didn't speak, but I heard them anyway. Take your seat. I stumbled backward. No. They all stepped forward. Take your seat. Faster now. Footsteps echoing in perfect sync. I turned and ran. The hallway didn't end. It bent, looped, writhed like it didn't want me to leave. But the lights ahead were changing. No longer white, now blue. A low hum filled the air. Mechanical. Artificial. And then I saw the sign overhead. Observation room. I burst through the door and stopped. The room was massive, cold, circular. Dozens of monitors lined the walls. Every screen showed the same thing. Me. Sleeping. Crying. Screaming. Being dissected. Being rewritten. The real horror? Some of them weren't in the cabin. They were in cities. Offices. Bedrooms. I looked up. A mirror. One-way glass. And behind it, a silhouette. Watching. Smiling. Taking notes. I didn't sit. I couldn't. But the chair pulled at me not with force, with familiarity. Like I'd sat there before. Like everything had come from that seat. The wall in front of it flickered once. Then again. Then it became a mirror. No, not a mirror. A window. I saw the hallway again. The staircase. The girl. She stood at the bottom step, barefoot, dripping wet, her eyes hidden behind strands of black hair. She whispered something. Too soft to hear. But on the glass, her breath left a message. He's almost done. Behind her, the door opened. Not the front door. The one to the basement. Dark. Yawning. A sound drifted up from it. Wet chains, scraping. Dragging. Something was coming. The girl turned and pointed. At me. The window cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but it pulsed, bleeding light. I stepped back. And the voice returned. From every speaker. From every screen. From my own teeth. Well, you must stay. Then the chair creaked, turning slowly on its own, inch by inch, until it faced me. And now someone was sitting in it. Not me. Not Jacob. Something else. It had no face. Only a blank smear where the features should be. But its hands. Its hands were mine. Scar under the knuckle. Burned ring from a summer camp stove. Every flaw. The thing raised its hand. Held up a key. And behind it, the door appeared again. Open. Dark. Waiting. But it whispered one more thing. If you leave, he watches. If you stay, he becomes you. I didn't reach for the key. Not at first. Because I realized the thing in the chair wasn't offering it. It was warning me. The door behind it pulsed with darkness. Not shadow, a weight, a gravity that pulled on my bones like old guilt. Jacob stood beside me, frozen. His eyes locked on the figure. His voice came out in a rasp. Don't touch it. The chair creaked again. The figure leaned forward. The key in its hand trembled, and the voice returned, not from the room, but from deep inside us both. You left the light on. This time, it wasn't a warning. It was an accusation. Jacob stepped back. His boots scraped against the tile, and suddenly the floor around the chair shattered. A spiral. Burned into the ground. Ash burst upward like a breath. The figure in the chair dissolved, crumbling like paper in firelight. But the key hovered in the air. Still waiting. Still choosing. The door behind it swung wider. And beyond it, we saw ourselves. 2 more chairs. 2 more faces. One asleep. One smiling. Jacob whispered, "It's still making us." I grabbed his arm. Then we don't go through. But what if it's the way out? I didn't have an answer. Because the spiral on the floor was starting to move. Turning. And the mirrors lining the wall, they began to bleed. Not red. Not black. White. The same color as the girl's eyes. Then the voices returned. All of them. Screaming now. Sit down, sit down, sit down. I didn't sit. Neither did Jacob. The key spun once in the air, then snapped, splitting in half midair before hitting the ground like a broken wishbone. The door behind it slammed shut with a sickening finality, and the spiral in the floor stopped turning. But something else started. The cabin tilted. Not just the room. The whole structure. A long, slow creak echoed through the walls like bones shifting in a deep sleep. We grabbed the nearest table leg, dusty, splintered, and held on as the floor pitched sideways, sending chairs, broken glass, and loose pieces of memory tumbling into the dark. Then came the sound again. Clapping. Not loud, not mocking, but steady, measured. Jacob turned to me. We're being applauded. Or mocked. We got our footing. The room had stopped moving, but now the walls were breathing again. In. Out. In. Out. Like the cabin was a lung holding us in its ribs. From the far wall, a new door appeared. Different than before. Red. Metal. Rusted at the hinges. A faint glow pulsed behind it, like a furnace waiting to exhale. There was no handle. Only a slot. The kind you'd find on a confessional. Jacob looked at me. I didn't want to say it, but I knew. It wants us to confess. To what? He asked. The answer came not from the room, but from the floor beneath us. 100 voices. All our own. Each whispering something different. Each one a truth we'd buried. Jacob stepped closer to the door. So did I. The slot in the metal flicked open with a sharp snap, revealing a blank page inside. And above it, words appeared, scorched into the metal like old sins. Write IT down. Jacob reached for the page first, but the moment his fingers touched it, the lights overhead dimmed, and the voices below grew louder. Not angry. Not cruel. Hungry. What do I even write? He whispered. I didn't answer. Because the page wasn't blank anymore. Words had begun to appear, his words, scratched in uneven black ink, like a pen in someone else's shaking hand. I let her drown. I didn't jump in. I said I couldn't swim. That was a lie. Jacob stepped back like he'd been burned. I never told anyone. The paper burst into flame, but no heat came off it. Just smoke. Thick, dark, curling into the ceiling and spelling something overhead. One down. Then the door unlatched. Just a little. The sound of metal groaning against age and pressure. I stared at the slot, hard hammering. My turn. Another page appeared. Blank. Waiting. The pen was already in my hand. When had that happened? I didn't remember. I stared at the page. Nothing came. Then, slowly, like a wound reopening, my fingers moved. I didn't call the cops. I told myself he was fine. I knew he wasn't. I watched the news the next morning with dry eyes. The moment I finished, the pen snapped in half. The paper smoked. And the door opened. Not all the way. Just enough for the red light to spill into the room. And for the smell to hit us. Blood. Ash. Something that used to be alive. Jacob turned to me pale. This is the only way forward, isn't it? I nodded. And we stepped through. Straight into the dark. Straight into what we deserved. The hallway on the other side wasn't a hallway anymore. It was a throat. The walls were too soft, too slick, veined with red light pulsing in time with something that wasn't a heartbeat, but wanted to be. Every step squelched. The ground breathed. The farther we went, the smaller it got, until we had to crouch, then crawl. Jacob whispered, "It's swallowing us." He wasn't wrong. The moment he said it, The passage tightened, not with force, with intent. It wanted us to know what it heard, and it liked being understood. We crawled for what felt like hours. Then, open space, a room, circular, cathedral-like, lined with mirrors. But the reflections didn't match. They were wrong. My reflection looked back at me but blinked too late. Smiled when I didn't. Jacob's was worse. It cried. Blood ran from its eyes like ink in water, but it never stopped smiling, never looked away. "I want to leave," Jacob whispered. "You can," a voice said behind us. We turned. A woman stood there. At least, she wore the shape of one. Tall, pale, hair like wet thread, no eyes, no mouth. But we still heard her. Inside our bones. "You can go, one of you, not both." Jacob looked at me. I didn't move. I couldn't. The woman raised her hand. Between her fingers, a coin. Silver. Rotating slowly in the air like it was caught in orbit. "Call it," she whispered. Jacob's lips trembled. "What happens if I lose?" She smiled. Not with her mouth. With the walls. With the mirrors. With everything. "You stay." And the mirrors laughed. Jacob hesitated. The coin kept spinning. Not falling. Not landing. Just hovering there between her fingers like gravity had no say in this place. "Heads," he whispered. The woman, Thame, tilted her head. "Then let go." The coin dropped. Spun in the air once. Twice. And landed. On the floor. But it didn't stop spinning. It melted. Right into the stone. Gone. The room held its breath. Jacob turned to me. "Was that me?" The woman didn't answer. She just stepped back. And the mirrors began to move. Shadows swirled inside them. Our faces. Multiplied. Distorted. Each reflection began to peel away from the glass, slowly, pulling into the room like wet paper dolls with human eyes. They reached for us. Not to kill. To replace. "I think that was the gain," I said, backing up fast. "I think that was the price." Jacob screamed. One of the shadows had wrapped around him. Its fingers were his fingers. Its mouth was already stretching over his face. I swung the crowbar. Connected. Glass and shadow shattered. But more kept coming. Dozens. Hundreds. A crowd of almosts. All whispering the same thing in our voices. "You lost. You stayed too long. You brought us back." Jacob stumbled. His eyes were glassy now. Something was inside, slipping through his pupils. turning his stare into someone else's. I grabbed his arm, shook him. "Jacob." He blinked, snapped back. Just barely. But the room roared. The mirrors cracked. And the voice came again. This time from every wall. Only one leaves. The ceiling split. Not cracked, opened. Like eyelids. A circular iris above us, widening with every heartbeat. Behind it, nothing. Not sky. Not stars. Just a spiral of black. The reflections hissed. Their bodies began climbing upward, folding into themselves, reforming as they moved. Limbs blending, eyes stacking, mouths stretching open to scream without sound. Jacob grabbed my shoulder. "We have to break the circle." "What circle?" He pointed down. The floor wasn't just stone anymore. It was glass. And beneath it, our memories. Spinning. Moments, voices, faces we'd buried years ago, all playing beneath our feet. And in the center, a single phrase burned in red. "Stay and become." Jacob raised the lantern. "I'm ending it." The moment the flame touched the floor, the reflections screamed. The glass cracked. Once. Twice. Then shattered. And all the memories rose. Flooded the chamber. Voices screamed through us. Childhood arguments, whispered regrets, the last words of the people we'd left behind. The air burned cold. The woman stepped forward again, but she wasn't a woman anymore. She was a frame, a vessel, empty inside, waiting for one of us to fill her. "You brought the stories," she whispered. "Now choose the ending." Jacob turned to me. His eyes were bleeding memory. "You leave," he said. "I stay." "No." "I remember now. I never left the first time." And then he smiled. Not in defeat, in peace. Before I could stop him, he stepped into the spiral. The floor reformed. Whole. Silent. And the mirrors? They all went dark. Except one. Mine. My face. Staring back. Alone. Alive. And for the first time since we arrived, the light turned green. The green light blinked once. Then again. Soft. Patient. The chamber was empty now. No figures. No whispers. Just me. And that one mirror. My reflection wasn't smiling anymore. It looked tired. Paler than I remembered. Thinner. But it nodded. Slowly. Like it understood. Like it forgave me. I stepped toward it. Each footfall echoed longer than the last, like the air had grown hollow. When I reached the glass, I didn't see the chamber behind me. Only darkness. And deep within it, another shape. tall, still, waiting. I raised my hand. The reflection didn't follow. It stayed still. Then slowly, it shook its head. The green light faded, and in its place, blue. The mirror shimmered, surface melting into ripples like disturbed water. A new doorway. A new choice. I didn't want to go in, but I couldn't go back. So I stepped forward and fell through. I hit ground. Soft. Wet. Leaves clung to my skin like old memories. I stood up. Looked around. Trees. Fog. A clearing. And in the center, the cabin. Ours. Whole. Empty. Porch light on. Smoke curling from the chimney. And on the step, a photo. Me and Jacob, smiling. Before everything. Before the mirrors. Before the choices. Before the trade. I picked it up. It burned my skin. But I didn't let go. Not this time. Because behind me, from deep in the woods, a voice whispered one final thing. You left the light on for us. I stood there, photo in hand, staring at the cabin like it might vanish again if I blinked too long. The porch light flickered. Once. Twice. Then stayed steady. Inside, nothing moved. No silhouettes. No shadows. No sound. Just the soft creak of the wind, and that strange, sweet scent, the one I used to associate with burnt pine, but now it smelled like remembering. I stepped onto the porch. Each board groaned, but not under my weight. Like they were waking up. The door was cracked open. Not wide. Just enough to invite. I didn't knock. Didn't call out. I just pushed it open and stepped inside. The cabin was perfect. Cleaner than it ever was. Couch cushions fluffed. Table cleared. Stove warm. A mug sat on the counter, steam still rising. 2 chairs. 2 plates. 2 knives. But only 1 fork. I reached for the mug. It was hot. Too hot. And when I looked inside, the liquid wasn't coffee. It was ink. Thick, swirling, alive. A face rippled beneath the surface. Mine. Smiling. Then screaming. Then gone. I dropped the cup. It hit the floor and rolled in a slow, perfect circle until it came to a stop facing the back hallway. The one that hadn't been there before. The one lined with mirrors. Again. Only this time, they didn't reflect me. They reflected everyone I'd left behind. Jacob. The girl from the lake. My mother. Even the ranger, with no eyes. Each stood there, unmoving, just staring back. And as I passed them, they whispered, "You're almost there. You brought this. Finish it." At the end of the hall, a single red door. Old. Chipped. The handle was wet. Breathing. And as I reached for it, the mirrors behind me shattered. All at once. No sound. Just loss. And a red door opened on its own. The red door led to a spiral staircase made of bone. Not clean bone. These were pitted, burned, blackened, each step sticky with something that hadn't finished dying. The air was thick, not hot, not cold, just full, like every breath I took pushed something deeper inside me. There were no walls, just void. I looked down. Couldn't see the bottom. Looked up. No ceiling, only darkness that pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. I started walking. Step after step, the sound of bone grinding beneath my boots. At first it was silent. Then, a whisper. Not from above or below. From within. "She left you." I kept walking. The whisper came again. "He never forgave you." Then louder. "They all forgot." I stopped. The next step was slick, blood pooled there like it had been waiting. Carved into the marrow of that step, written in perfect cursive. "You're not the first." I stepped over it. The staircase twisted tighter now. The void pressed in. And then, light. Faint. At the bottom, a door. Wooden. Familiar. Identical to the front door of the first cabin. I reached for the knob. It turned without effort. And when I stepped through, I was back in the cabin. Only not my cabin. This one was reversed. Left was right. Up was down. And sitting at the table, me. But older. Hollow-eyed. Hands trembling. Writing. Dozens of pages. Each one soaked in ink and something darker. The older me looked up. And said, "You made it farther than the others." I didn't speak. I couldn't. The older me kept writing, the pen dragging across yellowed paper like it hated the task. His hands were cracked. Fingernails blackened. His skin looked translucent, almost hollow, like something had eaten him from the inside out. "Don't ask questions," he said. His voice was mine, but worn, like it had been screaming for decades and only now remembered how to whisper. He pushed a page across the table. I looked down. It was a drawing. Not words. Not sentences. Just a door. But not any door I'd seen before. Circular. Carved in bone. Surrounded by teeth. It's the last one, he said. If you find it, you end this. And what? He looked up sharply. His face twisted, not in anger, but fear. You spoke. I froze. You weren't supposed to speak. The candle beside him flared. The cabin creaked. Outside, the wind started screaming. Not howling, screaming. Like it had a mouth now. The older me stood suddenly, knocking the chair back. They're coming. Who? He looked past me, through me, and whispered, us. Then his body split open. Not blood. Not organs. Just smoke. And from the smoke, they stepped out. A dozen versions of me. Tall. Bent. Crawling. Smiling with mouths too wide and eyes too hollow. You opened too many doors, they said in unison. I backed away. But the door behind me, gone. Replaced by wood. Old. Wet. Breathing. And the cabin began to turn itself inside out. The walls peeled back like wet paper, revealing more corridors, impossible ones, twisted and stacked like intestines. Floorboards buckled. Windows shattered inward, not from force, but invitation. The copies of me crawled forward. Their movements weren't natural. Limbs bent too far. Necks too long. Some walked on hands. One floated just inches above the floor, mouth wide open, whispering a laugh I hadn't made in years. I turned to run. But the ceiling bent down to meet me. Not collapsed. Bent. Like a spine curling into itself. Nowhere left, one of them hissed, slithering past the walls. You should have stayed in your head, said another, brushing fingers along my shoulder. I recoiled. Its skin was cold, soft, and too familiar. I tried to scream, but my throat tightened. Not like choking. Like forgetting how to speak. Like my body was deciding not to remember who owned it. Then, footsteps. Real ones. Behind me. Sharp. Confident. Someone else was in the cabin. A silhouette. Not a version of me. Not one of them. Someone new. A woman. Drenched in rain. Eyes blacked out with soot. In her hand, a lantern made of ribs. She walked right through the copies. They parted for her like ash on wind. When she reached me, she tilted her head and spoke without sound. Her lips moved, but the voice came from inside my skull. You broke the mirror. She handed me the lantern. Inside it, a flame. Not orange. Not red. Blue. A cold, sharp blue that hummed like a blade. She turned, walked back into the dark hall. Gone. The flame pulsed once in my hand. And suddenly, the copies screamed. All at once. Like they'd been touched by something ancient and real. I raised the lantern. They backed away, melting, tearing. One whispered, "You shouldn't have that." I stepped forward, toward the spiral staircase now growing from the center of the floor like a tumor made of stone. The blue flame flickered, and I descended. The stairs weren't made of stone. Not really. Up close, I saw them pulse, slick with something dark, veined like muscle. Each step groaned when my boot touched it, like it hated to be touched. Above me, the ceiling closed. Below, the spiral wound down forever. The lantern's blue flame whispered. Not with words, with images. Memories I hadn't earned. A woman sobbing in a bathtub filled with leaves. A child trapped in a closet scratching numbers into the wall. A man eating photographs by candlelight. All of them wore my face. I tightened my grip. The air grew thinner the deeper I went. The sounds above faded. Even my own breathing felt stolen. Then, the bottom. A wide chamber. Walls made of mirrors. All cracked. All weeping. In the center, a chair. And tied to it, me. But not hollow. Not pale. Not twisted. Me as I remembered being. Before the house. Before the knocks. Before the thing in the mirror smiled. He raised his head slowly. Looked at me. Spoke with my voice. "Why do you leave me here?" I stepped closer. The flame dimmed. He didn't blink. Didn't breathe. But his mouth twitched. "You made a deal, remember?" My throat went dry. "No." "Yes." He nodded to the floor. "A contract. Written in ash and sinew. Signed in something red. Not blood. Memory. You wanted silence," he said. "And you got it." Around the room, the mirrors began to hum. A low, bone-deep vibration that made the lantern tremble. "You came looking for peace," he whispered. "And now you're the echo." The flame turned white, then black, and all the mirrors began to break. Not crack, shatter inward. Toward me. Each one opened, and the things behind them started to climb out. They didn't climb like people. They crawled. Pulled themselves out of the mirrors backwards, arms bending wrong, necks twisted like puppets without strings. Some were me. Most weren't. Some wore faces I half recognized from dreams. Some had no faces at all. And still they came, dripping through the glass like oil from a broken pipe. The boy in the chair, my twin, my reflection, my mistake, didn't move. He just whispered, "You opened all the doors." I turned, looked for the staircase. Gone. The room had sealed. Only mirrors now. And mouths. Dozens of them lining the walls. breathing, chanting. You left the light on. I backed toward the center. The lantern burned black now. No heat. No glow. Just weight. Then one of the figures stepped closer. A woman in a nurse's dress, eyes scratched out, fingernails long as razors. She opened her mouth, and a voice poured out. My mother's. You left me in that room, remember? I shook my head. Don't lie, she hissed. More figures moved in. A child's voice, you closed the door. An old man, you turned off the light. A teenage boy, you said you'd come back. The room pulsed. My lungs felt full of mud. The mirrors screamed. The glass tore itself apart. And the black behind them was hungry. Then the chair scraped. The other me stood up. And I saw what he was holding. A knife. Bone handle. Blade curved like a smile. For the trade, he said. I turned to run. But there was no space left. Only reflections. And every one of them was already watching me run. I ran anyway. Because that's what you do, isn't it? Even when you know they're already behind you. Even when every mirror shows the ending. You run. The room twisted with me, walls flexing, folding inward like the world itself was choking. Glass shattered under my boots. Reflections burst into smoke. I turned left. Found another hallway. Long. Too long. Lit by hundreds of tiny candles floating in the air like fireflies frozen in prayer. Every candle flickered with a different color. Every flame whispered a name. Most I didn't recognize. One I did. Mine. Over and over. In every voice I'd ever used. Every lie I'd ever told. I ran faster. Behind me, I could still hear the chair. Still scraping. Still following. No footsteps. Just that knife. And a breath. Not fast. Not urgent. Just steady. Like it knew it had time. The hallway ended at a hatch in the floor. A rope ladder descended into blackness. Of course it did. I didn't pause. Didn't think. I climbed down. The air grew colder. Wetter. And when my feet hit the ground, I was back in the forest. But not the one from before. This forest had no sky. Just roots. Tangled, pulsing roots that formed a canopy above. The trees here weren't made of wood. They were made of skin. Stretched and sewn. And each one had a face. Pressed tight beneath the surface. Eyes closed. Mouths open. Silent screams, forever held. I didn't stop. The chair was still coming. I could feel it. Every time I blinked, it was a little closer. Every time I turned, it had moved. Not far. Just enough. And in the distance, a door, freestanding, open, lit from behind. The only thing in this place that didn't look dead. I ran to it. Didn't check. Didn't ask. Just ran through. The door slammed shut behind me. Not with wood. With teeth. Rows of them, jagged, yellow to human. The frame folded inward, gums sealing tight, like the forest itself had tried to swallow me whole and missed by inches. I didn't look back, because I knew what was behind me now. That chair. It didn't need legs. It crawled. And it waited. Always one step behind. The new room was silent. Not quiet, silent. Like it had never heard noise. Like it didn't know what to do with breath or voice or heartbeat. The floor was black tile. Slick with something warm. The walls were covered in mirrors, but they didn't reflect me. They reflected possibilities. One showed me older. Broken. Eyes dull. Face pale. Alone. Another showed me screaming. But with no mouth. And behind me, in all of them, the girl. The one in the dress. Always closer in the reflection than in reality. I stepped forward. The lights buzzed overhead. Flickering. Then steady. One mirror began to ripple. Not like glass. Like water. And a hand pressed through. Not wet. Not warm. Just there. Pale. With nails too long. It tapped the glass once. Then again. Then. Knock. 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 I backed away. The mirror split down the center. And out stepped me. Again. But not the same version. This one smiled wider. Moved smoother. Looked more comfortable here. He reached into his coat and pulled out something small. A lighter. My old one. The one I lost when I was 15 in a church parking lot during a thunderstorm. He lit it. The flame was blue. And then he whispered. Time to remember. The mirrors exploded. Light poured in. And the room began to fall. Not downward. Inward. The room didn't fall. I did. But not like falling off a cliff. Like being pulled through a straw. Everything stretched, skin, thought, memory, until it snapped. Then, silence. I landed in a hallway. Different this time. Wallpaper peeling like skin. Carpet soggy. Every door on either side was open an inch. Just enough to suggest. Not enough to see. And the walls? They breathe. Slow. Steady. Wet. The lights overhead were all red now. But not glowing. Bleeding. I walked forward. Because behind me, something clicked. Rhythmic. Like bones tapping on glass. The hallway turned. Bent. Split. Suddenly, there were two of me standing at a fork. I saw him, the other me, facing left. He turned his head and spoke without lips. "This is the one where we drown." Then vanished. I took the right path. Wrong choice. The floor turned slick. Then liquid. I dropped to my knees. The hallway tilted. And I slid. Not into water. Into a room filled with mirrors. Again. But these didn't show me. They showed every person I had forgotten. A girl I sat next to in second grade. The old man from the bus stop who vanished. My uncle's dog. That kid in high school who stopped coming to class. All of them. Watching. And whispering. One by one, their eyes turned black. The whispers grew louder. And in the center of the room, a single wooden chair. Still rocking. Still warm. Still waiting. And I knew if I sat, I wouldn't get up. Not as me. Not ever again. Then something stepped into the room behind me. It had my voice. But it was done waiting. It didn't rush me. Didn't scream or lunge. It just stood there. Wearing my skin. My jacket. Even the little scar on my chin I'd gotten falling off my bike at 7. But its smile. Too smooth. Like someone had practiced it in the dark for years. I backed away from the chair. It stepped closer. One foot didn't make a sound. The other squelched. Like something was still attached underneath. "Stop," I said. It did. Tilted its head. Mimicked the motion perfectly. Then whispered, "You're already in the chair." I shook my head. "No, I'm not I." It pointed behind me. And I turned. The chair was still there. But now, I was in it. Eyes closed. Mouth open. Like I'd been sitting there the whole time, dreaming everything else. The reflection laughed. No sound. Just a shudder in the room. And all the mirrors blinked at once. "You're still in the woods," it said. "This is just the part where you think you've escaped." I stepped forward, heart hammering. "Then where's the way out?" It didn't answer. Just walked toward the mirrored wall and pressed its palm to the glass. Then stepped through it. Gone. Like it had never been real. But the mirrors, they began to crack. One by one. Each time, the version inside screamed silently. Until the final pane shattered. And through the hole, I saw a hallway. Real. Flickering light. Cracked linoleum. The sound of a radio somewhere playing a song I almost recognized. And I ran. Right through the mirror. Right into whatever was next. The hallway stank of bleach and old paper. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting sickly shadows that pulsed every time I blinked. I turned back to look through the mirror I just stepped through. But it was gone. Just wallpaper now. Healing. Yellowed. Like it had been here a long, long time. Ahead, the radio crackled. Faint. A woman's voice, soft and distant, humming a lullaby. The tune twisted every few bars. Just wrong enough to set my teeth on edge. I moved forward. Slowly. Each step echoed louder than the last, like the hallway wasn't made of floorboards anymore, but bone. I passed door after door. Each one shut. Each one labeled with a name that felt familiar, but only after I read it 3 times. Then I stopped. One of the doors had mine on it. Not just a name. A date. Today's date. I reached for the knob. It turned on its own. Swung inward with a long, wet creak. Inside, darkness. But not the usual kind. This one had shape. It pressed against the frame, breathing. Waiting. I stepped in. Not because I wanted to, but because part of me already had. The door slammed shut. The radio cut out. The dark flickered. And then I saw her. The girl. Again. Sitting on the floor, back to me, head tilted. She held something in her hands. A small wooden box. When I stepped closer, she didn't move. Didn't speak. Just raised the lid. And inside, teeth. Not loose. Not human. Still twitching. Still biting at the air. She looked over her shoulder. No eyes. Just empty sockets that seemed to pull the light inward. Then she said, soft as rot, "You fed it for too long." And behind me, the room growled. The growl wasn't like an animal. It was deeper. Older. Like a building exhaling. Or 1,000 voices all grinding their teeth in unison. I spun around. The room had changed. No longer 4 walls and a floor, but a spine. I was inside something. Something alive. Veins pulsed in the corners. A membrane quivered across the ceiling, dripping something thick and dark. And a girl. Gone. Only the box remained. Still open. Still twitching. I turned to run, but the door wasn't a door anymore. Just a mouth. Teeth lined the frame. Wet. Breathing. Waiting. A whisper curled around my neck like smoke. You let it grow. I staggered backward. Every step squelched. Every breath tasted like memory. Old school hallways. My mother's closet. The basement I was never allowed in. All of it. Alive again. The box snapped shut behind me. And from the ceiling, something began to lower. A shape. Human. But not. It looked like me. Except it was missing its skin. Veins exposed. Eyes rolled white. It landed softly, like a marionette on strings. And it smiled with my mouth. You left the light on, it whispered. Then it lunged. I ducked. Its fingers sliced the air where my face had been, too long, too many joints, snapping backward like they hadn't learned how to bend right. I scrambled toward the far wall. The membrane pulsed, once, hard, and opened. Not a door. A tunnel. Dark. Breathing. But it was better than the thing behind me. I ran. Boots slipping on slick floors that weren't floors anymore, muscle, not wood. Every footstep echoed with something that felt like guilt. The tunnel curved downward. I didn't look back. I knew it was still following. Because the whispers hadn't stopped. They were louder now. Hundreds of them. All versions of me. Mocking. Begging. Laughing. You opened the box. You followed the trail. You're the key now. I turned a corner and nearly fell into a pit, circular, deep, lined with mirrors. All of them cracked. In each one, a different version of me. Some burned. Some frozen. Some still bleeding from places I didn't recognize. I took a step forward, and the mirrors lit up. One by one. Each reflection turned. Each one mouthed the same word in unison. Not out loud. Not with sound. Just a shape. Run. Behind me, the tunnel screamed. Wet. Guttural. Closing. I didn't think. I jumped. Into the pit. Into the mirrors. Into myself. I didn't hit the bottom. I kept falling. Through glass. Through smoke. Through static that buzzed in my teeth like distant screaming. Each mirror I passed showed a new world. A new version of the house. A new version of me. One where I never left the front porch. One where I answered the knock. One where I never existed at all. The air twisted around me. Flesh became wind. Sound became color. And then, silence. Complete. Not peace. Absence. Like I'd fallen between moments. Frozen in a space that wasn't part of the story. And there, floating before me, was the chair. The one from the forest. The one from the house. But older. Stitched from bones. Wrapped in names I couldn't read. And sitting in it. Her. The girl from the mirror. The girl from the floorboards. But now she wore a different face. Mine. She smiled. Calm. Final. You never left, she said. The void around us pulsed, hungry. She stood. The chair stayed empty. Waiting. I tried to speak, but my voice unraveled in my throat, threads pulling loose, syllables turning to dust. She reached out her hand and said with perfect stillness, "You were always the Andy." And when I touched her fingers, the world cracked open again. The world didn't shatter like glass. It peeled. Layer by layer. Like skin from something that had lived too long in the dark. Colors bled into one another. Not red, not black, but memory. Every piece of me that had ever been afraid stretched out across the void like a screen made of light. And then, silence. I stood. Somehow. On something that wasn't ground but held me anyway. Around me there was no forest, no mirrors, no hallway or house, just endless sky, bleeding upwards into nothing. And at the center of it all, a door. The one from the drawing. Circular. Carved in bone. Surrounded by teeth. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat at rest. Waiting. Not for anyone. For me. Because I had brought this here. I was the carrier, the echo, the witness, the wound. And this door was not a way out. It was a way in. Behind me, the girl's voice, my voice, whispered from nowhere. You were always the key. The flame in the rib lantern flickered blue, then dimmed. Then died. And still, the door remained. Alive. Breathing. I stepped forward, feeling the space beneath me respond, not with sound, but sensation. Every movement stirred the silence, like a ripple through old grief. At the base of the door, something had been carved. To NIT enter. I placed my hand on the bone. Warm. Beating. It opened, not with hinges, not with force. It opened like an eye. And inside, darkness. Not empty. Not dead. But watching. Waiting. I took a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. And stepped through. The door didn't close behind me. It vanished. Like it had never existed outside my choice. I stood in the dark. But not the same dark as before. This one had depth. Movement. Something brushed past my leg, light as a thread, cold as regret. Ahead, a single light flickered on. A spotlight. And beneath it, a shape. It was a person, or something pretending to be one, bound to a chair made of ribs. face buried in their hands, shaking. No, not shaking. Laughing. Slow, guttural, joyless. I stepped closer. The figure looked up. It was me, but twisted. Like the version of me that had chosen every wrong path, broken every promise, let everyone die. Eyes hollow, teeth too long, skin too tight. You came back, it said. I didn't answer. There's no ending, it whispered. Only retellings. I looked down. The ground beneath the chair was covered in pages. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. All with the same title. 3+ hours OF horror. And every one written in my handwriting. Blood-streaked. Burned at the edges. Repeating. Looping. This is where they all come, it said. Eventually the ones who remember too much, the ones who day. It leaned forward. The chains on the chair didn't stop it. They moved with it. Like they wanted it free. You didn't escape, it grinned. You published. I turned to run. But there was nowhere to go. Just black. And behind me, 1,000 screens lit up. Each one playing me. Screaming. Falling. Writing. Dying. One of them paused, zoomed in. My hand. Holding a page. Reading the final line. You left the light on. The chair laughed again. And everything burned white. I blinked. Not because I wanted to. Because something made me. The white wasn't light. It was erasure. A wiping of memory. Of meaning. I stood in a field now. Flat. Gray. Fog clinging low like breath that never finished. No trees. No sky. Only the sound of typing. Click. 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 I turned slowly. There, in the middle of the field, a desk. Old. Wooden. Familiar. My childhood desk. From the room where I first started writing. And at it? Me again. Of course. But younger. Eyes wild. Fingers bleeding as they danced across keys that didn't belong to any keyboard I remembered. Each press made the world shudder. And behind him, behind me, a wall of bookshelves stretched into the fog. Each shelf stacked with the same book. No title. No author. Just black covers. I stepped closer. The younger me stopped typing. Didn't look up. Just whispered. They gave us the ending too early. I didn't understand. He pointed to the sky. I looked up and saw words. Huge, carved into the sky like scars on flesh. Story ended. The letters bled ink, and each drop that fell landed as a face, mine. Screaming. Melting. Repeating. I didn't write that, I said. You didn't have to, he answered. You lived it. He stood. Walked around the desk. Offered me a pen. Not a normal one. Long. Sharp. Carved from something alive. The final door is a signature, he said. And you already left it open. I took the pen. And the desk disappeared. So did the field. So did he. Just me. And a blank page. Suspended in air. Breathing. Waiting. My hand moved before my mind did. And at the top, in trembling black letters, I wrote, "The end." And the page whispered, "Too late." The page burned. Not with fire. With rejection. Like the story itself refused to end. The words twisted, reversed, folded back into the paper, curling like dead leaves in autumn wind. And when the page was blank again, it screamed. Not out loud. Inside me. A sound like nails against memory. I dropped the pen. It didn't fall. It pierced the floor beneath my feet, splitting the gray void into veins of red light. And something began to rise. From beneath. From below the story. Hands. Dozens. Reaching. Grasping at my legs, my ribs, my throat. They weren't pulling me under. They were holding me still. A voice spoke. Not mine. Not hers. The story. You do not get to leave, it said. You do not get to forget. You do not get to be only the author. I thrashed. The hands tightened. I screamed. The world dimmed. And then she returned. The girl. But older. Now taller than I remember. Her dress torn. Her skin glowing with stitched lines of ink. In her arms, the chair. The same chair. The one from the cabin. The one from the beginning. She set it before me and said, "Write it again." I stared. No. "Write it again," she said softer now. "You missed something." Behind her, the fog parted. And through it, a doorway. Circular. Carved in bone. Surrounded by teeth, just like the drawing. The final door. But above it now written in living script. One last draft. I stepped toward it, and the hands let go. The door pulsed. Not like a heartbeat. Like a warning. The teeth framing it clicked once, like they were trying to remember how to chew. I stood before it, breast shallow, hands shaking, the last page still smoldering in my pocket. Behind me, the girl waited. No longer a child, no longer a guide. a witness. You'll forget again, she said. I nodded. I know. Then why walk through? Because if I don't, someone else will. She looked past me, into the dark behind the door, into whatever version of the story had been waiting to be remembered. And for the first time, she smiled. Not cruelly. Not kindly. Just knowingly. Like someone who had seen this loop too many times. And still stayed to watch. I stepped forward. The teeth pulled back. The door opened. Not to a room. Not to a hallway. To paper. Endless. Stretched into sky. Raining ink. The world itself was a manuscript now, unfinished, unraveling in all directions. Every step I took left words behind. He stepped into the last door. He did not know what waited. He remembered her name just once, and it hurt. The ink beneath my boots thickened. Became flesh. Became floor. Became the cabin. Again. Only this time, it was burning. Silent fire. No heat. No smoke. Just memory coming undone. The chair waited inside. And sitting in it, me. But this version wasn't twisted. Wasn't hollow. He looked at me with tired eyes. Held the last page in his lap. Will you sign it? He asked. I hesitated. Then sat. Took the pen. And for the first time in the story, wrote my own name. The moment ink touched the page, the cabin folded inward. Not burned. Closed. Like a book. And the world blinked dark. Then, silence. Not absence. Peace. A final page. Blank. And in the center, 4 words. The light is off.
The tale is over, but the darkness remains. Subscribe, or stay forever, in the silence between screams.